What would you do if your brand new lake mansion was invaded by over 100 strangers because your HOA president decided your home was community property? What would you do if the home you worked your whole life to buy, your personal sanctuary, was suddenly treated like a public playground by complete strangers? That's exactly what happened to Omarian Leclair. It all began the moment he thought he had finally secured peace. After decades in the tech world, Omarian, 50, bought a sprawling mansion on Lake Norman. It was his reward, a place of stillness with wide glass doors, a private dock, and polished wood floors. He'd grown up with little, and his mother's words, "If you want peace in this life, you'll have to build it with your own two hands," finally felt real. The stillness was soon broken by the Homeowners Association, specifically its president, Geraldine Caffrey. Notices about his dock light and deck chairs appeared immediately. Geraldine, sharp and unyielding, ran the whole like her personal kingdom. She saw Omarian's mansion not as his private sanctuary, but as a resource for the community. Their first face-to-face meeting was on his porch. "We maintain a very specific aesthetic here," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. Omarian was polite but firm, believing his property rights were clear. He underestimated Geraldine's ambition. Soon, neighbors began asking about the big party at his house. Puzzled, Omarian dismissed it until a neighbor at the grocery store asked if he was really letting the HOA host a graduation party for Geraldine's nephew. He hadn't agreed to anything. Geraldine, meanwhile, was already planning. At an HOA meeting, she floated the idea, suggesting the HOA had discretionary rights. When one member, Douglas Renfro, objected, "That's not your property to use," she waved him off. "If we present it as a community event, he'll hardly have ground to stand on." Invitations were sent, caterers were hired, and a DJ was booked for over 100 guests. Omarian was in the dark. When he finally confronted Geraldine, her response was chilling. "Sometimes it's not about permission, it's about participation," she said. When he called it trespassing, her eyes hardened. "Careful with your words, Mr. Leclair. You wouldn't want to appear unneighborly." He called his attorney, Victor Hensley, who assured him they had no legal right to enter his property. "Document everything. If they set foot on your property without your consent, it's trespassing." Omarian prepared to defend his home, but Geraldine was planning to invade it. The weekend of the party, Omarian was out of town. He returned to a nightmare. His driveway was packed. Cars lined the private road. A DJ blared music from his patio. Geraldine stood at the top of the driveway, clipboard in hand, directing traffic inside. It was chaos. Someone had pried open a side door. Trays of food cluttered his kitchen. Teenagers spilled soda on his hardwood floors. And strangers wandered through his master bedroom, trying on his jackets and taking pictures. His pool was overflowing. His dock was crowded with partygoers. And his boat was being used for selfies. He received a text from a colleague. "Big party at your place tonight. Looks wild." A call to a neighbor confirmed the worst. Geraldine said it was all set. The whole neighborhood's there. By the time he drove home on Sunday, the devastation was complete. His lawn was scarred with tire ruts, his welcome mat was sticky, and his living room looked like a frat house aftermath. Furniture was overturned, a sofa cushion was ripped open, and greasy stains marred his rugs. Upstairs, lipstick was smeared on his bathroom mirror. His dock was cracked and damaged. He called Geraldine. "You broke into my house. You trashed my property." "Oh, now don't exaggerate," she replied smoothly. "No one broke in. We had access for the sake of community needs." When he listed the damages, she was dismissive. "Repairs can always be made. But your attitude, that will leave an impression." Furious, Omarian began documenting every stain, crack, and scratch with his camera. Each flash was ammunition. He met with his attorney, Victor, who advised a bold strategy. "We'll file against Geraldine, the HOA, and every guest. $100,000 each," Omarian agreed. "Let them see what entitlement costs." The lawsuit hit the courthouse, naming over 100 defendants. Panic erupted through the neighborhood. At an emergency HOA meeting, Geraldine tried to maintain control. "This is absurd. He can't possibly expect to win." But the room was turning against her. "You said it was fine." Douglas Renfro shouted. "You're the one who orchestrated this." The courthouse was packed for the hearing. Judge Miriam Sloan reviewed the photos of the trashed living room, stained rugs, and broken dock. Geraldine's attorney argued it was a harmless gathering, but when witnesses testified, the truth came out. Sharon Dupree confirmed Geraldine said the party was approved. Douglas Renfro stated he'd questioned her, but she insisted the HOA had the authority. Then Omarian took the stand. "I bought that house to find peace," he said, his voice steady. "I came home to find it trashed. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision that told me my ownership meant nothing." Finally, Geraldine herself took the stand. Judge Sloan asked her directly, "Did Mr. Leclair ever give you permission to use his home?" Geraldine hesitated. "Not explicitly, or not at all." The judge pressed, "Not at all." Geraldine admitted quietly. The ruling was swift. The court found the defendants guilty of trespassing. Damages were to be awarded, with liability resting on Geraldine for orchestrating the event and every attendee who participated. The victory was decisive, but the aftermath tore the community apart. Families faced financial ruin from the settlements. The HOA removed Geraldine as president, and she retreated from public view, her reign finally over. The neighborhood, once proud, became a battlefield of whispered blame and for sale signs. For Omarian, the satisfaction of justice was tempered by the cost. The scars on his home and the fractured community were a heavy price, but he knew he had drawn a necessary line. His story became a lesson in property rights and personal dignity, cited in law lectures and inspiring others to stand up to overreach. He had proven that his home was his sanctuary, and the core lesson remained: entitlement has no place in respect. Boundaries exist for a reason, and silence in the face of their violation is the worst response. Harmony without respect is nothing more than control in disguise. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming, stories that remind us of what happens when ordinary people stand up, speak out, and refuse to let entitlement win.